So this is something that we want to get back to the biblical issue of the sacrifice. And I do this from a number of perspectives in this Bible study. One element is certainly to go back to the words of the institution at the Last Supper. And what, again, most people in general, Catholic or Protestant, cannot see is that these are sacrificial terms that Jesus is using. And the reason is that you don't know Hebrew.
Right, and that's what you talk about in the book, right? In understanding, what is it, the word to do, or
yes, exactly.
Right.
That the word, there are two words used for offering sacrifice. One is Zabach, which is the normal word for animal sacrifices, because it also means to slaughter. And in Arabic, for instance, the cognate word Tabach also means to cook. So there's this sense of this being a meal kind of experience and a slaughter. But in many passages, it says to do them. Now in English, you'll see that the translators correctly translate it as sacrifice or offer. But Hebrew actually will say asa, do. Or and in the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament, they use the Greek word do, poiein, or in its various forms, depending on the situation. And what's most interesting is that this is true in describing the sacrifice of the Passover lamb and of non-animal sacrifices. So when you offer bread, oil, wine, grain, flour, things like that, you do them because you can't slaughter them. It doesn't make sense. And so when Christ says do this, he is making the point he's a non-animal sacrifice and he is the Passover lamb, and that you do this and in remembrance of me. That word remembrance, I go through its uses. It's one time used in the Book of Wisdom, which is probably 1st century BC, written in Alexandria, Egypt, not in the Holy Land. It's not unlike 1st Maccabees or Sirach. It is not a translation of a Hebrew text, but it's written in Greek. That's why Jewish people don't include it in their canon, but Christians have since the beginning of the church. And in there, it uses the word memory simply as recalling the past. But that's the only time it's used that way in the Bible. All the other uses refer to a memorial sacrifice. And I give those passages for people to look up.
Right. Well, you clearly, I mean, it seems like a big part of what you're doing is to not only cite the New Testament, but to really get the foreshadowing and connect the Old Testament to the New Testament to reinforce the foundation, right?
Exactly. Well, and here's what's important. We have to remember that Jesus and the apostles and the crowds were Jewish. We see throughout the New Testament, Jesus is circumcised, presented in the temple. His family celebrates Passover every year, as was their custom. You see it in the Gospel of John. 3 Passovers are mentioned. He goes for the Feast of Tabernacles. He's there for Hanukkah, and so on. So he is Jewish. And this Jewish background, including the language background, the linguistic background, is part of whom he chose to be. He didn't just sort of happen to be born a Jew. From all eternity, he chose the people of Israel and chose to be born in their midst and draw on this whole background and pull it together in the New Testament.
Do you have any idea